Cool. So we're going to initially start by talking about the life cycle of a component. Does anyone know what I mean by the life cycle?
Is it creation and destruction and something in between?
So Villiers said, is it creation, destruction, and something in between?
Mm-hmm.
So
life cycle.
It all sounds very spiritual, but essentially, yes, that's what we're looking at. So the terms we use in React, this is from the official documentation, are mounting, updating, and unmounting. So it's the phases of life, right? The life cycle, the phases of life. If you think about a human, then we are born. We live our lives, we go through various stages, we're a child, we're an infant, then we're a child, then a teenager, then at some arbitrary age, we're an adult, and a lot of stuff happens in our life. We get updated many times, we learn new things, learn new skills, right? And then at the end, we die. So a component in React will go through a similar sort of cycle, yeah? We have the mounting phase, so we mount the component. It is born. Certain things happen, which we'll talk about in a second, and then it moves on to its main life phase. It's there, it's present. We can update it, we can change the props, change the state, re-render, all that sort of stuff, and then at some point it's no longer necessary, and we unmount that component or we destroy it, as Villiers said. So hopefully we can sort of understand what is happening here, because some of these terms at least should be familiar to us, right? What's the first thing that happens when we run a new component or render a new component? So if we've got something like, this is the example we'll come to later. So this is our new class component. What's the first part of that class that runs? The constructor, yeah? The constructor is where we initialize some beginning values of our class. So the constructor runs, it can get the props that it's received, and it can set various things in the state. What happens next? It's rendered, right? So if we've got lots of methods in here, that code isn't run, yeah? It's there ready for later if we need it, but that code isn't run. What about if we had something like a component, I can't see it there, component did mount. What about if we had something like that in there? I'm not going to write one out, but if we had a component did mount sort of function going on in there, would that run first, or?
When you start the component, the input or whatever.
So we said the constructor runs first, and then what happens after the constructor? The initial render, yeah? So render can run many times, but the first render happens next. And then what happens? It sort of depends on your app, right? But if we have a component did mount, that would run next. So coming back to our diagram here, we can see that the constructor runs first, then a render runs, then the actual, we check the DOM, all that sort of stuff, see if anything needs updating. Component did mount comes next, and then our app is only really going to update if we do something else. Otherwise, it will just be rendered, it will be static, nothing will change, right? But if we've got dynamic components, we're changing values, we're changing the state. What's the common method we use to change the state once we've rendered once? Set state. So we can see that set state's here in the updating section. So when we run set state, look what happens. We have an arrow down to a render. So in other words, set state forces a re-render. Yeah? So then React will update the DOM by running its diffing algorithm. Has anything changed? Well, if we've set state to something different, yes, of course, something's going to change, and it will actually get updated on the screen. So that, in a nutshell, with that diagram, is your component life cycle, and the things inside of it, such as render, component did mount, component did update, component will unmount, are called lifecycle methods. Can we control when they run?
Well, with set time, you could delay something.
So we could delay the timings of it and how long the inner function takes to run, but we can't change the sequence of these events, right? They're called automatically by React. We might be able to prevent the render by calling a certain method. I don't know whether they've shown that here, if we show less common ones. Yeah, should component update. So there is actually a lifecycle method called should component update as well. So we would be able to call that, pass false into it, and that would stop the component from re-rendering.
Could be something similar when you're using JavaScript, like prevent default of the DOM. And stop the
Sort of,
process.
yeah. You're stopping the default behavior, yeah. So it maps in a similar way to events in the DOM and event.prevent default. Yeah, sure. You could use that analogy, yeah, if that helps you understand. Cool. Yeah, I just want to make you aware of that, so that if you expect certain values to be in your initial render, you know, check that. Yeah, so if you've got your constructor values and then it's rendered, just be aware that anything you do in your component did mount might not be immediately visible in your render. Yeah, you might be doing a fetch call in here, fetch into some external API. That might take some time, and then obviously if you're calling any set state things as well, that would force the re-render. So just try and be aware of this flow. It might help you in debugging things if you get some unexpected behavior and some unexpected values in your component. Any questions on that before we move on? That was just sort of a general overview of the life cycle. I'll send some links at the end in Slack, and you can read a bit more about it if you need, and I'm sure we'll revisit it at some point anyway. Any questions on the general life cycle? No? Go on, Davide.
About the component, classic example, on Facebook. When you scroll the page and you start the video, for example, the component will mount can start when the page, so when the video, the page go, so you don't have to listen. Could be an example like this to stop the process, to stop the rendering.
I don't fully understand your flow of events that you're describing there with your Facebook video.
When you scroll the page on Facebook, you
Yep.
find the video, okay?
Mhm.
Let's say there is a component, but if I click that button, it re-render the page, playing the video.
Okay.
Then I start to scroll the page, and so the video starts to go up. I remember at the beginning there was a sort of, you had to stop the video. I remember in Facebook the first time, you have to stop the video, otherwise you still keep going the video, the sound. Then now the page, when you can't see anymore the video, because now scroll up, no? The video stopped. Now there's another feature that the video appears on Mac before, yeah, in this way. Because I remember I have to scroll down again, stop the video, and then go up. Afterward, they implemented other things. You scroll down the page up, and the video stop by itself. Could be something, for example, when the page go outside the view, the component will mount to stop the rendering of the video.
Davide has just given a really detailed example there of what happens when you scroll up and a Facebook video stops playing its audio if it goes out of screen. We're trying to work out maybe if they're using some similar methods to this. Certainly for the initial render bit, I can talk about that. I'm not sure how they're doing the sound thing, but component did mount, we will typically use when we don't want to load everything immediately. So we load a basic page using the constructor and the initial render. Then if we've got some information heavy or things that take a long time to load, we can stick them in component did mount, such as if we've got a large video file that we're getting over a network. I'm not sure about the scroll page thing, to be honest. Yeah, so let's just try and keep the example simple. So if you're fetching data from a database that's going to take time, or you're fetching a video and you don't want to re-render until that video is loaded, then you could stick it in component did mount. So we load the basic layout just using the constructor and the initial render. Then we stick, the thing that takes a long time in the component did mount. And then when that's done, we can trigger a re-render. Yeah, so it's a way of giving the user something to look at rather than loading everything at once. That's how we typically use component did mount. As for the other things, I'm not 100% sure how they're going to do it. Why are you saying component will mount? That's a deprecated lifecycle methods. Don't use it. Oh, this one, component will unmount. Right? Yeah, maybe they're using that to unmount the video when you scroll down the page. Perhaps, yeah. I'm not too sure, but I guess something like that could be used, yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Right. The next thing I want to talk about is how do we pass data or information or values, whatever you want to call it, between components in React. We're probably very familiar with one way. Props, someone said, yeah. So how does that work? How do we pass information using props? Yep.
By specifying, for example, message equal, and then what is it, like curly braces? The value.
Yep. If the value is dynamic, we definitely need some curly braces.
Curly braces value.
Yep. So in general, we're used to this sort of syntax. Yeah. So if I wanted to. Hold on, let me give you a bit of context in a minute, but this is the general format, right? We've got a component, in this case I've called sun, and if I wanted to pass, this time I'm passing a function as a prop, then I would write it in this way. I'd have the name of the prop equals whatever I want to pass. So in my sun component then, so I'll say the general scenario that I've set up. So I've set up a parent component, which I've called mum, right? And then I've got a child component, which I've called son. I've also got a daughter one in there, but we'll just simplify it and just work with the son for now. Inside of the son component, I want to display what my mum's name is, yeah? So I want that data to be passed as a prop. So I can pass it from the mum down to the child component as a prop. Yeah? So how would I do that? Can someone give me the bit of code? So the name of this prop is just called mum name. So what would I do? So I want to pass a prop called mum name into my son component. Can someone just talk me through that process?
Okay, so we have son. So pass props.
Yeah, we just need to pass a prop, but I just want someone to give me the syntax for it. So at the moment, we've got, okay, let me get rid of the component did mount thing that I've left in there. So if I get rid of that and have a look, yeah. So we've currently got, this is the sun component rendering here. I am the sun. My mum's name is, and we've got nothing because we haven't given it any data. So we want to give it the value of the parent component. And you're quite right, we do that through props. Yeah, props work in one direction from the parent to the child. Yeah, so props have a unidirectional data flow from parent to child. So that's the easy way. We can easily pass something from a parent to a child. How would we do that? So we called the props mum name, yeah? So I'm just going to write mum name. And that is going to be equal to, someone can give me their mother's name if they want. What's your mother's name? Adriana? Like that. Yeah? Is that correct? Yeah? No? That's good, okay. Perfect. So, now, if we go back to our app, we can see I'm the son, my mum's name is Adriana, yeah? So, that's displayed. That's easy, right? We know how to pass data as props. We've been doing that not quite since day one, but probably towards the end of the first week or second week, we were able to do that. The question is, if we've got some data set in the son, how do we get that back up to the parent? Is it possible?
Yes.
Yes, it is possible. Good. But maybe it's not as straightforward as the other case. And if you haven't seen it done, I think it can be quite hard to wrap your head around. So,
Callback?
yeah, essentially what we need to do. I mean, no one knows, do they? I mean, please, if you know, then shout out now, and I can give you credit.
Redux?
So we've got, in our case, the son component, right? And if we've got some data inside the son, like what they want for dinner, yeah, they want pasta for dinner, but we want to communicate that to mum so they can make our dinner before we get home or something, yeah? Sorry for the stereotype, mum cooking the dinner and all that, but
So I can call a function which will update state.
so essentially, yeah, we want to use a function that updates the state in the mum, yeah? But how do we get this data?
Take it from the sun component.
Yeah, we need to take the data from the son component. So if we passed it as a prop, it would only go down to the child of the son. So we need to do something slightly different.
Does it something with the super?
Not really, no. Okay, so
The function will have a set state to call back the same data that we had before, data, something like that.
something like that, yeah. Let me try and explain it. So, the steps. We define a method in the parent. So I've called that talk to children, and I've given it an argument of meal because we want to find out what meal they want, yeah? And then we're going to call this .setState and update our dinner property with the value of meal. Fine, that won't work yet. That's sort of step one, set up a method to actually update the state in the parent. Step two, down here we can see that I've given the son a prop called talk to mum. So the son wants to be able to communicate with the mother. And we pass a function as a prop. Now that function refers to the method on the parent. And that's step two, setting the parent up. Yeah? Then the final step, just make sure you don't make my mistake and make sure you put argument names in here as well so that we can actually get some data back. Yeah, if we left those empty, we'd run into a problem. So, I then want to trigger that function based on a button. So I'll remind you on the app, how the app looks. So essentially what we want to do, initially, we don't know what they want for dinner, right? It's unknown. So we need to get that data from the son so that we can update the parent. So what I want to do is I want to click the talk to mum button, and that will update it. Oh yeah, it's already working. Yeah, but that will update it with what they want for dinner. Yeah, so they want pasta. So if I just refresh that, unknown initially, talk to mum, updates the value, the correct value for dinner. So that's getting passed from the child up to the parent. So let's look at exactly how that was done. Yep, so it's linked to an on-click event, right? That's why when I click the button, something happens. So what happens when I click that button then? Can you talk me through what this code is doing, someone? It's calling another function called update meal, which is located still in the child, yeah? And then what does that function do? Well, it calls the method that we set in the props, this.props.talkToMum. Yeah, where's talk to mum? Well, that was defined back in the parent, here, yeah? So that links to this and runs that code with the correct data from the child. So that can be really hard to wrap your head around, I think, to begin with.
It's like you need a flow chart
Yeah.
Yeah.
to draw and understand the flow.
Like,
Yep.
like a word was e-came video with a blank note.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you write, they order in the kitchen.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. So we're constantly updating that state based on our child components. Do you want?
Instead on play, on change, it's a for. Every time we write, we receive the input one letter.
Yeah, we could do it by an input rather than hard coding it. I mean, I've just done it based on the state, but it would be better to do it with an input. Absolutely. Yep. So, do you want to have a go at writing that for the daughter? We'll do it as a group. We'll try and write it for the daughter component so that we know what the daughter wants for dinner as well, right? At the moment, we've just got the son's order, and if I go back to my app, we can see that the way I've set it up, when we click talk to mum, it actually changes both of them. Yeah, it changes the son and the daughter at this stage. But we don't want that. They might want different things. Yeah, so let's see if we can go through the process to write it for the daughter component. So we're still doing child to parent, but let's try and do it as a group. First step, anyone? Yeah, anyone else apart from Phileas at this stage? So if we were in the parent component, what did we do? Call the what, sorry? So we defined a method here, is that what you're saying, Lucia?
No, but this is okay. You need to handle that, right?
But I'm going to need a separate thing in my state. Yeah.
One should be talked to someone in the doctor or something like that. Yeah, talk to someone, talk to the doctor.
Yeah, I think that would be nice, right? Let's have very similar methods, but one of them's called talk to son, and one of them's called talk to daughter. Yeah. So we're separating them in some way. I'm not saying this is the ideal way to do it, but I think logically this helps us understand.
Is that possible? Because in this,
Yeah, go on.
in this case, we have to be, for example, if we have 10 child, 10 son, 10 children. Okay?
Yep.
We have to write 10 functions. There is a chance to write one function and put a separate logic if the child did it.
Yeah, sure. But for now, I just want to separate the processes completely just to understand the steps, yeah? So, what about the state then? So at the moment we've just got a dinner state, but we want to separate these in some way. Yeah?
Yeah, we want some dinner and daughter.
Cool. Yep. So we can say son dinner. What's it complaining about there? It doesn't like the dash. The dash is fine if we do something. Oops. So we need quotes around it, yeah? We need to do it like that. Yeah. And a comma, thank you very much, Lucia. Yeah. And then we can have some dinner down here. Again, of course, we need quotes. Yes, yeah, I wonder why that was complaining, thank you. I'll do that in a second. And we can have daughter dinner in here, right? If you spot any typos as we go along, please let me know.
Sorry, great. What did we surround with speech marks? The key?
Yeah, so here, if we've only got one word or one thing, then automatically JavaScript knows to convert this to a string. But essentially there, what it thought I was trying to do was take the variable son and subtract dinner from it. That's what that means in JavaScript, yeah? So instead we have to tell it, this is a string, please treat it as such. Make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now we've separated out this logic, talk to son, talk to daughter. Okay, yep. What's the next step once we've set up a correct method and correct state? Say again, Vivian? Something about the render function? Yeah. Call it. What do you mean call the render function? The render function just runs at certain points, right? When the state's updated, when we've used this .set state, initial render. So do you mean change something in the render?
Yeah, so the objects we created.
So what did we do in the case of sun? Line 26. That's fine. That's just getting the state from up here, right? So initially on the initial render, they're both going to be unknown. But then how do we update this value based on what is in the child component? That's the whole method that we need to try and understand or begin to understand today. So we passed.
Should that be some dinner? There's no dinner anymore.
Yep, definitely. That should be this dot state dot sun dinner. So what's the best way to write that? What am I doing wrong? Sun is not defined. Dot state dot sun dinner. Sun dinner. I'm confusing myself now with these. Shall I just get rid of that? Do it like that. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Camel case. Okay. Yep, and then we need to change this because we've separated them. Talk to son. So how do we replicate that for the daughter? That bit initially, yeah? Yeah, daughter dinner. So the key bit, how do we get information from the child to the parent, is we have to pass the method as a prop so that we can call it from the daughter.
So this
this dot talk to son, yeah. Cool. So we've passed talk to thank you. So we've passed talk to son as a prop. Yeah? So we pass in the function as a prop. And we call that when needed. So at the moment our daughter hasn't got that, so daughter won't be able to communicate with the mum. How am I going to make it so that she can communicate with her? Within the daughter wrapper, yeah. Where am I? Yep, down here. So we also need to talk to mum, yeah. And what is that going to be equal to? A bit of JavaScript, yeah. Arrow function. Still needs an argument, absolutely. This dot talk to daughter, yeah. Make sure we got the argument. Awesome. So that is now the parent set up to receive information from the daughter. Yeah. Now we need to set up the daughter as well. Oh, that's annoying. I didn't realize that I'd left that in there. So, what do we do?
Well, the glue is there, so we need to create a button.
We need to create a button.
Rename the class name for daughter instead of son. Should the button have a message to send the property to mom?
Say that again, Bouquet.
So the button itself should
Yep.
have a message
Yep.
or a function to send the meal property back to mom.
Fine. Yep. Then what? What's that going to do at the moment?
At the moment, it's not going to do anything. It needs a function
So at the moment,
Don't click.
on click.
so at the moment we've just got my daughter wants unknown for dinner, send meal to mum. So we've got a button, but if we click it, nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
Event please on click.
So let's do an on click. Luigi's just suggested. Yeah. Where does that go?
On the button.
In the button. Yeah. So when we click in the button, what's next? Equals. Yeah.
Sorry, brackets.
Yeah. Do you mean brackets or curly braces?
Brackets.
Like that. Okay. Carry on then. Whoever's carrying on. Sorry, I'll try and get rid of that message.
You need curly wrapper at the beginning.
At the beginning, what here? No. Uh huh. Then what? Arrow function. Yeah. Yeah, the name of the function we don't have. So what should we call it? Let's name it now and we'll create it afterwards.
Talk to mom.
Talk to mum, like that. Uh-huh. So we don't have it at the moment, which is why it's complaining, yeah? So shall we create it? Where do I create it? I should ask before. Above here?
No, below nothing.
Below nothing. That's really descriptive. I know what you mean though, because I've got nothing up there yet. So this is called talk to mum, yeah? And then what? Curly brackets here.
to set the state. This dot set state.
This dot set state, says Luigi. Do we agree? Give it an object. What are we setting? Dinner. Doesn't matter, does it? Because state is local to the component. So we're only dealing within this file and we're just going to pass on the value. So dinner equal to meal. So you need meal up there as well if we're passing it in. Awesome. Good. Going well, guys. Well done. Sorry, what's the issue now? So probably where? There? Like that? This dot talk to mum, yep, because it's a class. Okay, if we didn't put the brackets, what would happen? So you're talking about brackets here, yeah? Yep, so if we didn't put them, what would happen?
If we remove the curly brackets.
If we didn't have the brackets after talk to mum, would that work? No, it wouldn't work, right? Because we're not actually invoking the function, we're just defining it, yeah. So we definitely need to call it. Okay. What, inside here? Meal in here, but meal's not defined, is it, at this stage? Yeah? How are we doing? Do we think we're nearly there? Do we want to test it, see what happens? Yes, okay. So this okay. All right. Let's have a look. So the sun, does that work? Where are we? Oh, we seem to have broken our sun as well. So the buttons aren't working at the moment. Nothing is happening. Do you need inspect to see what's going on when we click the buttons? Do we get any errors? So it's undefined in mum at the moment. And our daughter one just doesn't seem to be triggering at all. Yeah? Sun's triggering. Oh no, probably just not console logging the other one. So, how can we fix it?
The pasta was, I think, picked up. It was in the console log.
So the console log, it was definitely defined in sun, but it didn't make it to mum for some reason. Yeah? So, oops. So this dot talk to sun, this dot talk to sun. So this is wrong, right? I didn't change this. Sun dinner, sun dinner.
Oh, sorry, you made it camel case. Yeah, and it's...
And the same for daughter, yeah?
And now you don't need the...
Yeah, okay. We don't need the quotes, but they don't hurt, right?
It's okay or not? You can use it that?
You can use it with quotes, yeah. I'll leave one in and one out, right? And we'll see the difference eventually. So let's check our sun's definitely working again now. Yep. Pastor updated. But luckily, daughter didn't, well not luckily, we programmed it that way, right? Daughter didn't update this time. So at least we've separated the logic of two of them, yeah? But if we click the daughter one, it's still not working.
Should be unknown as well because we didn't change the meaning in the document.
It should be unknown. So if I refresh it, daughter wants unknown for dinner, yeah? So that's correct, but nothing's happening when we click. So let's go back and revisit our component, yeah?
But you never specify what meaning.
No, we never specified, right? So
It's just nothing.
it's just nothing, yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's not.
So if we set state here, we're just going to
We
change.
send some parameters to the function like pasta or whatever. Well, no, because that is not correct.
So what we're doing at the moment, we are trying to set the state to something different in the daughter, yeah? So even if I don't know, just put something in there, that's only going to, that's only gonna update the state of the daughter. Yeah, so we're back to square one. We're still not passing any information up to the mother.
Is it because we didn't put that variable on line 15?
Is it because we didn't put that?
Yeah, on line 15.
Okay, we can try that. What do you want in there?
No, this talk to mum needs a
This, okay, yeah. What do you want to put in there?
meal.
Meal. Okay. And then, see, that's undefined, yeah? Because where's it getting meal from?
Dinner then. I'm trying.
Dinner? Yeah, no.
Should we pass as a props the method that we created at the parent level?
So, yeah, we're not still referencing the method
we're
that
not
we've
using
got as
props.
props, right? So on click this dot talk to mum, well that's just going up here. What about this method
prop.
that we passed as a prop down to our parent, down to our child component? Yeah, we passed down talk to mum as a prop, and we're not using it anywhere. We need to use that prop method in our child component to get the data back up and use this function that is inside the parent. So this dot props, I like that. Where does this dot props go? Inside here. Okay, yeah. We can do it that way. You could either call it directly down here, or we can call talk to mum, which is what I did in the sun, and then call the props method up here. Yep, sure. So we got this dot props dot talk to mum. It's there. So yeah, that must be what I've called it. So I'll get rid of this dinner so it doesn't confuse us.
You don't need. You just can send instead of dinner curry. This dot state dot in.
This dot state dot dinner, yeah. This dot state dot dinner. Cool. What's that going to send at the moment?
Nothing.
Nothing. So should we change it to something?
Yes.
What do you like? Give me a meal. No. What'd you say? Kebabs? Oh, crepes. Yeah, you've just had. Were they good, by the way? Oh no, not creepers. Crepes. Is that how you spell it? Is it very filling, yeah? Good pancakes, good crepes. Cool. So this is looking pretty good now. Are we happy with that? Maybe? Should we try it? Yeah? Let me just close that. Excuse me. Okay. So this is the son. Should work. Daughter hasn't changed yet. If we send the mail to mum, will it work? Hey, look at that. Well done. Good. So I've got a cough now, which is excellent. So the steps to pass the data up: create a method and send that as a prop to the child. Then call that prop method from inside of the child with the data that you want to pass up, and that's it. Yeah? Any questions? Because I know that's hard to wrap your head around to begin with, but it's a pattern that you'll need again and again and again. Vilius mentioned Redux, right?
Yeah, you can use the state manager just like you.
Yeah.
You can just overcome like whatever you want. You can send, but this adds extra dependency and complicates things, which just one of the things you have to realize: what is a class, where I'm calling from, so who's a parent, am I embedding elements, and once you wrap head around, it's pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Your children can access your class like macros. That's how you can data states.
Did everyone catch that down the end, or shall I reiterate a little bit? So, yeah. So Vilius mentioned Redux earlier. So, what? Yeah. I'm getting to that. What it is. So, again, Vilius correctly explained that it's state management. So, at the moment, we're passing state up and down, between our components, and our state is only accessible by default from within that actual component itself. The state is local to that component. So we have to do these things, by passing methods as props, and then, using it as a callback function to get our state back up to a parent component, to avoid that sort of complexity, which can be hard to get your head around, and especially for very large applications which have perhaps got many levels deep of parents and childs and nested components and all that stuff. Some companies will choose to use something like Redux, which is a global state management. So in other words, anything you set into the state is accessible from any component. It stores your state globally right at the top of your application, so you can access it from any child component. So that's why you'd use Redux. But again, as Vilius said, that can add sort of an extra layer of complexity, and it can add to your file sizes and all stuff like that. So you might not want to use that for smaller applications where you could just do this sort of approach, And also there's the context API as well, which is built into React, and that can handle simple state exchanges as well. So maybe there's not a need for Redux in your application unless it's huge and that's just the way your company runs it. Cool. Further questions? Sorry, Luigi.
With Redux, to pass the state from child to parent,
You don't really pass the state from child to parent with Redux, so you would get the state from the global state store. Anything you set into the state is available from a state object that is available globally. So you don't really have to pass between. Say again? How do you call it? I'm not going to go into Redux now. It's got actions, reducers. It's got lots of other features that you need to learn to be able to use it as well. So there's a learning curve to use it. It's not just the same syntax as what we've been working with here. It's a completely different syntax, and a bit of a learning curve to use it. So there's a couple of reasons not to use it there, right? But for big, large applications, you might want to integrate it into your project eventually. Cool. Any other questions on what we've done just there, guys? Or it's been quite a long one already, so I want to leave it there really, if possible. But just be aware that that pattern exists if you need it in your applications and your team apps. Yeah? Cool. Thanks very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Cheers, Rudy.